Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to do asks today, but I just wanted to pass this on. Someone sent this to me. They seem to be selling the prop that they used for the music box, and it's going for a whopping $500. I think that's really interesting. Like, why are they selling it now? They've had it for so long, and they used to put it on the shelf behind the stage when they did Talking Dead. And why are they selling it? And why are they broadcasting that they're selling it? I mean, that's a Beth thing, right? So just another really interesting thing that's going on right now. And yeah, I just thought I'd pass that on. Let me know what your thoughts are about that. Okay, so interesting little interview tidbit I dug up from the SDCC Malaga, Spain convention. At the end of this YouTube video, there's an audio recording of Norman starting at 6:34, where a Portuguese interviewer asked him about the possibility of filming Daryl Dixon in Portugal. Norman's response, I would love that. There is part of our story that ends up in Portugal this season. I can't tell you what that is, but, and then goes on to say, I'd love to film in Portugal, but if we were, I couldn't tell you anyway. Very interesting. It's hard to know whether this season is referring to S3 or S4, though, since they are filming season 4 now. He talks about Portugal like he himself has not filmed there, but that part of the story does indeed take place there, which is not something we've heard anything about up to this point. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, it sounds like part of the story taking place there is kind of like what they did with England, where they start in England and end up in Spain. I don't think they actually filmed in Britain. Everything was CGI'd. So it's probably something like that. Like in the show, they're in Portugal, but in real life, they didn't film there. But yeah, we haven't heard anything about that. So you wonder what part of the story is going to go to Portugal. And I want to say that that probably has something to do with the whole pilgrimage thing. Um, I bet Galadriel Jones knows something about this. But I don't really have anything to add. But yeah, that's super interesting. Super interesting. So thanks for sending that in, Obadella. Okay, obviously we all want Daryl with Beth, but if, emphasis on if, we turn out to be wrong, what kind of woman do you want Daryl to be with? Um, I don't know. I don't know that I want to really name any particular traits. I would want him just to be with someone who makes him happy and, such that it's a healthy relationship, which means that she would put him first and, like all healthy relationships do, and make him happy. I think it would have to be someone who's a little bit more optimistic like Beth is because that's who balances him out. I've talked about this lots of times that actually Daryl and Carol would be terrible as a couple because they're both given so much to destructiveness when things go wrong or when they get depressed. And so they need people like Ezekiel and Beth to balance them out. And so I think he would need something like that. But beyond that, like I said, I just want him to be with someone who makes him happy. And I think most of the fandom feels that way. Most of the fandom who doesn't think she's coming back and aren't part of TD, they just want Daryl to have a happy ending. That's really all they want. So yeah, I second that. But it really doesn't matter overall because I do think that it will be Beth. Interesting question, though. A horse survived on Tina. Well, wonders never cease. R.I.P. Buttons and all the other horses that came before, gone but not forgotten. LOL. Um, it seems like someone had a comment about this that like explained the symbolism behind it, but now I can't remember what it was. But yeah, I understand. I remember seeing some sort of meme that somebody put together during season 5 when the Buttons episode aired, and it was very cartoonish looking, and it was like a newscaster saying, in other news tonight, we have a new character on The Walking Dead, Buttons the horse. And then in the next one, it just shows like blood on the screen and it's like, and he's gone. So yeah, thankfully they didn't kill the horse this time, but I unfortunately can't guarantee anything for the future. So, okay, next one. Loved the use of a hippo in this episode. Two things that you might have brought up about hippos in other episodes that I may have missed or forgotten. Hippos may not look it, but they are actually incredibly strong, one of the most dangerous animals in Africa, and kill around 500 people every year, things not being what they appear. Yeah, good point. I don't think we talk about Egyptian mythology much in this fandom compared to Greek or Roman, but holy heck, the things the hippo face Egyptian goddess, oh, I don't know how to say that, Tawere, is associated with versus Beth-related things. She was a protective deity known for safeguarding mothers and children during pregnancy and childbirth. Beth and kids, Beth and kids. She was also very appropriate for this episode because some of her other titles are Mistress of Pure Water and She Who Removes Water. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. The biggest thing I always think about with Egyptian symbolism, I guess it's really not symbolism or like cultural stuff, or mythology, but the Egyptians were very, very dependent on the Sirius star in terms of the seasons and watching for it so that they could do their crops. And also they would use it to predict when the Nile was going to flood. So the Sirius symbolism is very much tied up with Egyptian symbolism, even though we don't usually talk about it that way. But yeah, I had not heard of this goddess, and that's really interesting. I really like that. I mean, the way they did this little girl and how like ethereal she was and how they focused on her eyes. I mean, you could see her being the embodiment of some sort of goddess. So I really like that. Thank you for sending that in. Very interesting. This is probably nothing, but another name for leprosy is Hansen's disease. Hansen at Grady, anyone? Ooh. Who Dawn started out as his second in command before she killed him. Yes, I know there's an E versus an O here, but it's close. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know that we could say for sure that they were thinking that when they gave him the name of Hansen back at Grady, but I love connections like that. That's like super cool. So here's hoping that that's exactly what they're going for. Really great. I didn't know that leprosy was called Hansen's disease. So thanks for telling us that. Europe has such a fascinated, awful history with leper colonies. I actually expected that we were going to have another religious nun, etc. group here, as historically people with a religious calling were some of the few willing to go near or treat lepers. I wasn't familiar with Spain's specific history with the disease, so I did a little Googling. Surprisingly, Spain had activity colonies, sanitariums, being built through World War II in the Canary Islands. There you go, which is extremely modern in the timeline of human events and may explain why Zabel Gimple, the powers that be, decided to use it as a relatively ancient disease to have come back so quickly post-apocalypse. Not sure where I'm going with this. Just the history nerd in me found them pulling all this in interesting. Yeah, I mean, the Canary Islands is a really potent tie because we've seen references to that so often. So just the fact that it has a tie to the Canary Islands, Spain and the Canary Islands, that right there could be the reason they decided to pull it in. It's part of that symbolism. And that symbolism is still so vague and it's still something we haven't pinned down. We don't actually know for sure what is being symbolized there, but I know that it's tied in with like the cure stuff and therefore with Beth stuff. But we don't exactly know, exactly what it means or exactly what's going to happen when it comes to the Canary Islands. But yeah, that's a really potent tie because we've seen that so many times. So I can totally see them, deciding to hint at the Canary Islands for whatever they are foreshadowing there, and then going through the history of it and finding little ties that they can throw in and be like, oh, well, we need something here for Daryl Dixon, the spinoff, there was a big history of leprosy and leper colonies here, so let's throw that in. You know what I mean? Because it's to hint at what's to come. So yeah, really great digging there. Great history mining, if you will. So thank you for sending that in. Super, super interesting. Um, saw this article being passed around. Other than that, the author gives me shipper vibes. It's funny to read it after watching your video for this episode and realizing how much one person can see versus one person can miss. I did read this. And yeah, what Nani is talking about here is that this person just was really very unimpressed with the episode. I'm probably not going to read the whole thing. You guys can read it. I will put it in the show notes. Um, yeah, I mean, I definitely got shipper vibes too. They just weren't that happy with it. And yeah, it strikes as like something where if you're not paying attention to the symbolism and you don't know where they're going with it, you might be asking, what is the point of all of this? And that's basically what the article does. Okay. She clearly wants to see more of Daryl and Carol together on the screen. That's why it's giving us shipper vibes, right? So, and this is the other thing that's funny to me is we've looked up the ratings and it's still getting better ratings than most shows on TV. Okay. I mean, remember when season 1 and season 2 came out, they were talking about how it was the highest rated Walking Dead that had ever been. I don't know if it's still quite that high, but it's doing very, very well. Okay. So there's no like, oh, it's going to get canceled due to low ratings. No, no, no. Lots and lots of people are watching this show. Okay. So we don't need to worry about that. But people who don't like it or don't understand it are saying that the writing sucks. And it's like, I can see people showing up for the first season if the writing sucked because they were trying to check it out, but then after that they wouldn't keep coming back. This is season 3 and it's still doing well. So not everybody thinks the writing sucks, clearly. So it says episode 5 stumbles. Splitting up your leads with only 2 episodes left is disappointing. So, and especially because um, she says, Carol hasn't been there from the beginning. She just showed up at the end of season 2, and this is their first true season together. So why push them apart? And I mean, to me, it just shows that it was never going to be the Carol show. They gave Book of Carol the name, which I honestly think was just to pacify certain parts of the fandom, but that's not what the story is about, right? Um, it feels like the opposite of fan service. Okay, the only people that would say it's the opposite of fan service are the ones who want Daryl and Carol together. It does things that no one wants while managing to break one of its cardinal sins of writing, which is every scene should move the story forward. Having Daryl pit stop at a leper colony is the equivalent of a video game side quest. Labeling it a waste of time feels harsh, but in the grand scheme of things, that's precisely what it is. Now, I understand this, but I don't think that there is any way for us to know yet whether it's a waste of time until we get to the end. This may loop back around. So to me, that's an awfully big assumption that because something happened here, that we're not going to see it again. Maybe we won't, but maybe we will. We haven't reached the end of the season yet, much less the end of the series. Anyway, so I will let you guys read through this, but yeah, what the actual F is going on with Carol. Out of character. And the thing is, I understand where this is coming from too, because she's acting very different than she used to act. She used to be very edgy and angry and always trying to blow things up and stab people and all of that. And she's not that way anymore. And so I understand why they're saying that she feels out of character, because compared to how she was in previous seasons, that's kind of true. But it's because she actually found some peace. Heaven forbid characters transcend and find some peace and let go of their pain. Anyway, like I said, I'll put this in the show notes and I'll let you guys read through it and see what you think. But mostly it kind of just made me chuckle because as Nani says, like they didn't seem to pick up on any of the symbolism, like none of it. And so that just shows you that when people are just kind of glancing over it and watching it on the surface, they're definitely not getting as much out of it as we are. And I understand that they can get frustrated because of that, but we can see below the surface and we can see that there's a lot more to it than that. So yeah, thanks for sending that article. I've seen a lot of behind the scenes videos and pics for season 4 and no Beth. They're filming out in the open, so it'll be harder to hide Emily. If Beth is back this season, she should have a bigger role. No, it just depends. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I mean, it could be that there's a lot of possibilities, right? It could be that he doesn't actually find her until sometime in season 4. It could be that it shows her having her own storyline, but they're not, like Beth and Daryl are not together at the same place, which means she could be filming indoors or at a different location. It could be anything. We just don't know for sure. So we'll just have to wait and see. I wish I had a better answer, but I do not. I know as much as you know. So isn't it interesting that even though Daryl and Carol are working together, they often just show Daryl alone without her. I don't know why I find that interesting, but I do. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the main reason for that is that when they're together on screen, there's a really particular reason for that. And let's put it this way. If you think back to the way that they did the groups in season 4, when the prison went down, everybody was divided into groups, and there has been many metas written about how that was foreshadowing. So the perfect example is Rick and Michonne and Carl. At that time, Rick and Michonne were not together romantically, and they weren't technically a family, but we saw them together as a family unit, and then pretty quickly after that, they became one, right? So it was a foreshadowing. And then, of course, Beth and Daryl, like obviously there was a reason they put them together. So putting people together on screen, doing things, having them in the same shot, all of that. I mean, of course, sometimes it's just necessary for the plot of the story, but sometimes they're also hinting at things. They're also using the very fact that they are or aren't together on screen as a symbol of what's going on. So this is just another way of showing that Daryl and Carol are not a couple. And they might be a, kind of a dynamic duo when they're working together and that sort of thing, and that's great. But they're drifting apart from each other in a lot of ways, I think. Carol is drifting toward Antonio right now, and Daryl is doing his own thing. And then, like we said, one of the first things we talked about is it feels like he's heading off. I mean, he is heading off to find Justina, but that feels like he's heading off to find Beth. So that's symbolic too. He's going to go do that, and she's not going to actually be with him, or at least not right away. As I said in my video, I do wonder if she'll be taken or kidnapped at some point, but we'll just have to wait and see. As of right now, they're doing different things. So just the fact that, I mean, I think you're right. I think this is a really good observation that they are very specifically not putting them together. And the same as what that article said, that she was frustrated that they keep separating them, but that's because that's not where it's going. If they were going to be a romantic couple, which has been all kinds of debunked now, they would have them hanging out together. They would have them doing things together and acting more as a unit, and they're specifically not doing that. So that ought to tell people something. As we have already established, certain people should be picking up on that hint, but they are not. So yeah, but really good observation. I like that. I do have some more things to go over that my fellow theorists and I have been talking about, but I think I'm going to call it there for today. And I will work into those probably next week after the next episode. I am still working on Operation Lead the Walkers Away. I'm sorry it's taking so long. It's just that with the show on, there's so much to do all the time. And I think I told you before, I've been doing a launch for my job, and it's just, I've got a million things on my plate. So it's just slow going, but I will get them out. Honestly, I might not get those videos out until after the season ends. We've only got 2 more episodes, 2 more weeks. And I'm just not thinking I'm going to have time to finish it before then, but I am working on it. I have not forgotten about it. I will get it to you. So I will close there, and we will have a new episode on Sunday, and I am excited to watch it and analyze it. I will talk to you guys again then. Bye.